In this tutorial, we are going to create project management app. So this project is going to be very important for practicing React.js. So here you can see that whenever we click on create new project, here the new project would be opened and I can type here anything. That project name, enter task name, you can type any name. I'm just typing tomorrow. Get up early and go on the walk, and I am going to select the date here, and if I save it, here it is saved. Again I am going to create another task here. I'm just typing here market, go there and take some milk and eggs, and I am going to select the date, that in which date I have to go to market. If I save it, it is also saved. So here if I create new project and click on cancel, that we don't gonna create that task, we have cancelled it, we are moved back. And now if I click on that add project, we also move again to our new task, and here I am going to type anything, that university have a quiz and assignment, and here I am going to select the date on which date we have to submit that quiz and assignment. If I save it, here all the values or all the projects are saved. If I check it here, we have that university task and that due date, and this is the work that we have to do. Here we can also type tasks, it's up to us. And if I click any project, you will see we will move to that task. So if I click here on delete button, that task is deleted. And if I click on mark it, and if I have done that, I will click on delete, this is also deleted, and university as well. So what we have, that project is not finished till now, but we have further functionality. We have to add some tasks here, like take lectures. If I add it here and go to meeting, and have a break, if I click here, these tasks are added here. Now what if I have done my lectures, I will simply click on that button and that lecture will be cleared. And if I have done my meeting, I will simply click here, the meeting is cleared now. And after taking my break, if I click here, my break task is cleared. Now only one task that I have left with, which is take lectures. If I take lectures, I will simply click on clear. Now take lectures is also cleared. Now if I have done that task, which is in my university on that due date, I will simply click on delete, and that project is also deleted. So if you remember, it is also same as we have chat application, that we are going to start some chat, and any chat, it's out to us. This is the same structure as we have chat app, like WhatsApp or emo or any other, we will simply click on, like, these are my contacts in which we are going to chat, and I click to any my contact and its chat will be shown here. And if I have here other contacts, their chats would be shown here. So this is the same structure as we have for our chat applications. So without wasting any time, let's move to our VS Code to create that task management application. Our app component is going to be start from scratch, and here we have our index component, and here you can see that in our index component we have rendered only app component, and our app component is initially empty. So we are going to start everything from scratch. Here we have to type RAFC, just press enter and you will see all the data here. Just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and you can see that here it is showing app that we have basically rendered here. So what we have to do now, in our app component we basically need our sidebar at the first time. So for our sidebar and more components, I am going to create a folder here, and its name is components. And inside this folder I am going to make our first file, which is named as sidebar.jsx. Here you have to type RAFC and you can see all the code is showing here. Now just press Ctrl S and move in our app component, and here in our app component we are going to import our sidebar. Import sidebar from components.sidebar, which is automatically a path came here, and here I am just taking as sidebar closing tag, and this is our self closing tag. We have rendered here sidebar basically, and here you can see it is showing sidebar. And what we need in our sidebar, basically in our sidebar I have just need a paragraph. This is not a paragraph but h1 h2 tag, or I can just take h5 tag, and here I am just writing it is rendering at two sides. Here I have to type enter and press h5, and I am just saying your projects. Now just press Ctrl S. And you can see here it is showing an error. What is the error? Basically we have removed our sidebar. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. Here you can see that it is showing your projects, and I am going to work with our bootstrap that we have already installed. Let me show you in our package.json, and here you can see that we have React Bootstrap. So now we are going to work with React Bootstrap components, and in our sidebar we basically need some column, and this will be at the side. As you can see here it is showing our components, and on this sidebar we have basically a button. I'm just going to import here as my greeting system of Bootstrap. I'm just going to type here class name as row, and here I am going to type again a div, and in this div I am just writing column medium device as 3, and we have to crop that from here and paste it at the top. I'm taking some style here in my class, and here I'm just writing background color. Background color as black. And I have to type color as white. And one thing more that I gonna take here is text align center. Center. And in this our component, I'm just going to take a button here which will be imported from our Bootstrap. Let me open my Bootstrap here, and here I am just typing buttons. I'm just taking the first button. To import that button, I have to copy that code and paste it in our sidebar component. And I have already created a complete tutorial on our Bootstrap, on our React Bootstrap, that how can we install and use the components of our React Bootstrap. So here I am going to take that button, and I am just typing here add project. Just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and you can see that we have a button and H5 tag here. So what we have to do, I'm just going to make a border here. Border as border radius 1 rem. Now just press Ctrl S, and here you can see that we have a border radius here. So what we have to do, I'm just taking some space from upper side. Margin top as 10 pixel. And here in our sidebar, I am just taking some margin here as well. Style, margin top as, I'm just typing 5 rem. Five rem is so far. And here I am also taking style, and in this style I am going to take margin top as 2.5 rem. And I am going to take some height as well. Style, and I'm just taking minimum height. I'm just taking 95 VH, and you can see it is not responsive. Now let me make it as responsive, so that the thing that I missed here, that container, Control X, I'm just typing here container, and here I have to type as fluid. Control V. Now press Control S, and look, you can see that everything is responsive here. And here we have our React Bootstrap button, and here we have text. So what we have to do now, our sidebar is completed for the time being, and we would make work with this sidebar at the later part of our this project. So for the time being, we have to take here a picture and some text and as a button. So I am just taking here a new component. I have to remove it. So I am just taking here as no project selected, no project selected.jsx, and here you have to type RAFC as well. Now just press Ctrl S, and here I'm just going to take, let me check what is the gridding, and here I have to take another class inside this div, and this class name is column at medium device 9, and inside this column I am just going to take our no project selected component, import no project selected, and here I have to render that component, no project selected. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. And what we have to do here, basically, I have to also make all the content at center. I'm just typing here as all the content to center. So here I am just going to take a picture. I'm just taking here img and closing tag, and here I am just taking h2, and inside h2 I am just writing no project selected, and at the bottom part I am just writing p tag, and here I can write select a project or open an existing project is up to us, what we are basically going to show to our users. So just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and now you can see that it is looking here. But what we have to do, I want this text to be shown at this place. So the very first thing that I have to do is style. This is our CSS style, HTML CSS style, not basically going to use all the classes of Bootstrap. So here I am just typing text align as center. Just press Ctrl S, and now you can see that every text is centered now. What we have to do, I have to take here an image. Now let me import that image. Import no project image from image, and inside this image I'm just taking book dog. This is basically the name of our image. So I am going to take source here, and I have to take here curly braces, and inside these curly braces I have to type no project image style, width of 20, I'm just writing 250 pixel, and height as well, I'm just typing height as 200 pixel. Let me save it and move to our output. And what we have to do, I want this all the content should be shown at the center so that it may look awesome. I am just going to take some space here, some margin here, as margin top of, I can write here as 3 rem. Let me check it. And now you can see that it is at center now. And for the responsiveness, you can see that it is fully responsive. So what we have to do now, here I also want to add a button that on clicking on that button, if we click on that button, we can move to our new project. So I am just taking here a button. I am going to copy that button from our sidebar. Control C, and here I am going to take that button at the bottom of our p tag. Control V, and here I have to also import that button. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and I am going to change that name. I am just typing here create new project. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and you can see that we have that text and that button as well. So what we have to do now, I want basically whenever we click on that button or on that button, there should be a new project open here. So for the first time, I am just going to take that new project designing. I am just taking here as new project. I'm just taking P as capital. And here I have to type some text. So let me move in our Bootstrap. And here I am just typing table forms. I need basically form here. So what form I am going to use? Form controls. And I am going to copy that form. And let me create a dummy component here. Just press Ctrl V, and here I am going to take that data, Ctrl C, and paste it in our that new project component. Ctrl V, and here I am going to take that form, Ctrl C, and paste it in our new project component. So here what we have to do, I am just going to copy that code and paste it again at once. I am just going to take 3 input types. Now just press Ctrl S, and here inside our app component, I am going to display that instead of no project selected, I am going to take new project. The very first thing that I have to do, I have to import it. New project, and here I am going to render that new project. Now move to on our output, and you can see that it is showing here the output, but I want some gap here and here as well. So how can we have a gap here? Let me crop that again, and here I am going to take class name as row, and inside that row I am just taking a column, class name as column medium device 2, and I am taking it again as let me make it div, and here class name as column medium device 8. Now just paste all the code here. And one thing more that we have to do, here we have total 8 columns till now, so we have to add 2 columns further here. Now save it, just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and here you can see that it is looking awesome, some space here and here as well. So what we have to do, I want this content should be at that place, so I am just taking here some margin as top. Let me take here some margin, style, margin top as 6 rem, is, I think that's enough. So what we have to do now, I'm again taking a component here, I will take the component at later. So first let me make a button here, and we have to write all that code inside that fragment. And again I have to take another div here, which is class name as row. I'm just taking class name column medium device 3. I'm just taking 4. Just copy it, Ctrl C and paste it again. And here I am taking that it is 3. Let me check how many are there at bottom. There are 2 columns at bottom. I'm also taking here as 2, and these are total 6 now. And here I am taking 5, and here 5 as well. And inside this column we have to take 2 buttons. One button is for cancel and the other button is for our save. Now just press Ctrl C and move to our new project component, Ctrl V, and again I have to type Ctrl V, and here I'm just typing cancel, and at this place I am going to take save. So just save it and move to our output, that how is it looking like. And you can see that button is undefined in our new project because we have not imported that button here. So I have to import that button here, Ctrl C and move to our new project, and here you have to paste it. Now save it and move to our output, and I want basically the space at the top, but there should be a little bit space between these buttons and this form. So I'm just taking here as 1, and at here I am just taking, I'm going to remove that space from here. Control D. And here I am going to take the space, margin top as 4, I'm just writing 5 rem. And what we have to do now, I want this button should be at this place. Five and 8, 10, 5 and 5, 10, and I'm also taking text align. And what I have to do now, I want here some space as well. As I am taking margin 1 px, and here I am also taking margin as 1 px. I'm taking the margin for both of them. This is just because for our responsiveness. Now what I am going to do here, I want its outline should be changed, and here I am going to move in button, and inside these buttons I am going to take that button which is secondary button, and I am taking variant as outline secondary. Just press Ctrl V and save it. Now you can see that we have that button, and here as well I want some more space here between these two buttons. I'm just taking here as 2 pixel, and here as well. So what we have to do now, I want let me make the our no project component here. No project selected. Now save it. Now I want whenever I press on that button, this component should be hidden, and at this time this component should be displayed. Or if I press here or at this place, this component should be shown here. So how can we do that? For this place I need a useState, and here I am going to take a useState. I'm just taking const not selected set not selected is equal to useState, and its initial value I am going to take as no selected. I'm just typing here as no, so its initial value is no, and whenever I click on the button, let me show you. Basically I don't have the button here, I have the button in my no project selected component, and I am going to pass that. I'm first taking here just a function, and that function would change that set value. I'm just taking fat arrow function, I'm just writing here replace function is equal to, that is fat arrow function, and inside this fat arrow function I'm just typing as set no project selected as yes. I have just paused it. So what I have to do now, I want to call that function whenever our that button is clicked. Let me show you. Whenever our this button is clicked, I want this function to should be called. So I am just typing here a prop. How can I pass the prop here? Replace function is equal to replace function. Now just press Ctrl S and move in our that component which is no project selected, and here I have to type curly braces no project selected. On I don't have to write here no project selected. I have to type that prop which is being passed now. Just copy it and paste it inside that props place. So this is our button, and I want to, whenever the button is clicked, that function is called, which is passed here as a props. Now just press Ctrl S. And one thing more that I wanna show you, if our function is working successfully or not. Console.log, and here I am just typing set state called. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. And for the time being, I am not going to show that component here. And here inside my console, whenever I click on that button which is create new project, here it is saying that set state is called. So by determining this thing, you can say that our function is successfully called, and our set state is also making some changes. So what we have to do now, I'm just taking here, I have written here a function. So basically I have to type here a variable that depending on the condition, if our no selector function have no or yes variable, so depending on this condition I have to show our project that if I have to show our no component selector project, or I have to select here new project. So I'm just taking here let project is equal to, I have just defined it. I'm just taking here as if not selected is equal to no, then proj is equal to, I'm just typing here the name of that project which is no project selected, and at this time I don't have to make it here, just crop it from that place and paste it here, Ctrl V, and I have passed that props here. So if no project is selected, then it should initialize our no proj. So here as if no not selected is equal to yes, then what we have to do, I have to just initialize that proj is equal to with our new project. Now what we have to do here, I'm just going to render our approach here. So the problem is that we have to use here the curly braces. I have forgot that. Now this is our basically JavaScript which is initialized from these components. Now just save it and move to our output, and here you can see that whenever I click here it is showing that page. The same thing I want to do with that button. Whenever I click on that button it should also show here. So how can I pass that props? With sidebar. This is our sidebar, and inside this sidebar I have to pass the props. The props would be same as we have passed to our no project selected. Just copy it and paste it inside our sidebar. Let me see where is our sidebar. Inside these lines I have, let me see the sidebar here. Here is the sidebar basically. Just press Ctrl V and save it and move to our sidebar, and inside this sidebar I have to pass that props. Where is that props? Inside our app component. I'm just passing that replace function to our sidebar. No sidebar have that function, and I'm just calling that function by on clicking on that button. Just save it and move to our output, and you can see whenever I click here on that button it is also moving here. And let me refresh it, and whenever I click on that button it is also moving at the same page. So what we have to do now, I want whenever I click on that button it should move back. So how can I do that? Let me move in our VS Code, and inside I'm just going to move in our new project, and here I should also have to pass the props, and again I have to create a function. Just copy it and paste it at the bottom, and let me make some changes. Replace function, I'm just typing here wrap, and this set is now updated with now. Just save it and move again to our new project, and here I have to pass that props. Let me copy that props, and basically I have not written that props. Ctrl C. I have to pass that props to our new project, which is here. I'm just writing the same name is equal to, and here I have passed that function as a props. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our new project, and here I have to write curly braces, and inside these curly braces I have to receive that props, and I gonna use it whenever I click on that button, which is a save button. Just press on click, and here on this on click I have to pass that function. Now just press Ctrl S and I have created that button that whenever I click on that button, this button would call that function which is passing here as a props, and it will be called by our it will be called from our app component, and in our app component we have defined that function. Now let's move to our output and let me see is it working or not. And you can see that whenever I press on save button, it is going to back. So again, whenever I click on add project, it is moving here on that page, and I click on save button, it is going back. So I have successfully done it. Now what I have to do, basically I have to fetch these values for this step, and for our next step we would have to display these values here. We don't gonna display these values, but we are just going to save these values and show these values here after that button. So our first step is to fetch all of these values. So I'm just going to fetch these values with the help of form that we have created and learned in our previous tutorials. So let me first press Ctrl D, and here I'm just going to type on click. I'm first making it as name, and after name I have to type on change. This function would be called whenever on change occurs in any text field. I'm just going to type here fetch value, and one thing more that I have to do is value. Now just press Ctrl S. So let me first make these names and values as well. So I am just making here as full name. I'm just writing f name, and here I am also passing that f name, and in this type I'm just typing here as text, and inside this text here I'm just typing address, address. I'm just typing here. So what we have to do now, I have not made values and names and on change function on this our text area. So now we have to make values, name and on change function for this text area. Let me copy that. I'm just going to copy that code, Ctrl C, and now I have to paste that code inside our that text area. This is basically our input type of text area. So here I have to paste that code and change the value and name as well. So I'm just going to type here me message, and inside this value I have to write the same name, same value as well, message. Now what we have to do, I have to create here a function, and for the very first step I have to create here a useState, and this useState would be able to create that name and values dynamically. It would fetch the values by comparing that name, and our all the code would basically put the values input in these text fields. Just press Ctrl S and let me move to output, and here you can see that fname setVal message not defined in our new component. So here I have to create and define all the functions. So for the very first step I have to use here useState, and here I have to type data value. I'm just typing the D as small letter, data value, and here set data value is equal to, and here I have to use useState, and inside this useState I have to use curly braces because it would pass a single object. So in this single object I have to set all these values of name. Here I have to take that value, Control C, and here I gonna paste it, and here you have to make it as initially empty, and for message, and here you have to type it as empty as initially. So here I have typed that name as empty for our initial state, and the one thing which is remaining, let me see, this is address. Let me copy it, Control C, and paste it in our useState, Control V, and here I have to give it as empty initially as well. So what is happened now? In our data value we have all these data values. This is data value is an object now, and inside this object we have all these values which are known as data values. So how can I fetch these values now? Basically all these data values are inside that object. So first let me copy that object, and now I have to paste that object inside all the values, Control V dot fname, we have here values which are inside that object which is known as data value. Now just press Ctrl S and you will see we are still unable to type anything, but for the time being it is showing here the error that fetch value function is not defined. So here we have successfully made our initial values. So what we have to do now, we basically want our that function which is fetch value. I'm just going to create that function here, const fetch value is equal to and here I am going to just pass any object, any parameter, and this parameter is nothing but just you can say it is an event which is basically occurring during our any change in any text field. So here I have to type, let me make curly braces and use a code snippet, name value is equal to e.target, and here I have not written its type, I am just writing const. And one thing more that I have missed here, which is complete arrow. So here we have fetched that value and name as well. So what we have to do now, I have to compare with that value to that name, and with which it is comparing it would pass the values. So here I have to use our set state, set data value, and inside this set data value I am going to use fat arrow function, and inside this value I am just writing previous value, and here I have to return something because our this function would return something to our main setState function. And here I am just going to type spread operator and val. I have to write here comma, and here I have to use these braces, and inside the braces I have to write name, and here I have to write colon value. So just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and here you can see that we are able to type anything here but not inside our text area. Let me see what is the problem with our text area. I think there is a spelling mistake in our initial values that we have defined here. This was double S. Let me see it. Yes, this is double S. No, just save it. And now here I am able to type anything here. So what is happened basically? We have created these our controlled values. So all these input values are controlled by React now. I have created a complete tutorial in detail that you have seen in our previous some tutorials of forms. So here we have these values, and whenever any change occurs in our any of these input types, these values are updated with our setState, and this setState is also making previous values. So it is basically making an array, and with that array it is also making our new values which we are typing at the same time. So now whenever we type anything, these values are stored in our f name, message and address. So now we are able to get these values by just these three names. So what I have to do basically, I have to type these values which I have successfully typed here, and with these values I want whenever I click on that button, these values should be saved here as an array. So how can we save these values here? The very first step that I have to do, I have to control all these values by clicking on that button. And for this thing we have to move in our app component, and inside our app component I have to create a function. And what would be the function of that function which we are going to create here? That function would basically get the values from our that new component, and all the values that function would get from our new project would be stored in an array, and this array would be displayed as a array map. So let me create it, const, and here I am just typing the name of that function. You can have any name. I'm just typing add project, handle add project. You can have any name, it's up to you. Is equal to, this is a fat arrow function, and now inside this function we are going to pass a parameter. We can pass multiple parameters, but I am just passing here a parameter as an object. So Here you can have like project data, and inside this project data is a parameter here. This handle add project is a fat arrow function, and inside this fat arrow function I am going to set that set not selected. Let me first check it. And here I have created this type of array, this type of useState. I'm basically going to change that useState because I'm just going to take multiple values inside this single useState. I'm just writing here selector project ID, selected project. I'm just typing selector project. So here I'm just typing as no initially. So here I am typing projects, and these projects would be initially empty. So what we have to do now, here I have to type, just let me copy it, Control C, and here for comparisons I have to write it now, Control V, and here as well Control V. I think both of these are enough. Let me check at the output. It is not showing here. I think there is something missing with our new project. Where is our new project? Here we have that new project, selected project, and I am just passing that function as a props. Dot selected project. Nothing is missing. Then what is the problem with that? So the problem is here that we have written here as set not selected project, and we cannot pass here directly this value. So I have to remove the code here, and here I have to write curly braces, and inside these curly braces I have to type selected project as yes, and I have to pass all the values as it is. So to pass all the values as it is, I'm just going to take here preval is equal to fat arrow function, I have to type the first letter as small, Control X, I think there is something missing here, so let me check it. I have not written here as return, so this function would return something to our main function. No, the same thing we have to do with our that function. So basically we don't need that function for further work, but for the time being let me show it. Control C, with that function. Just let me type here as no, Control S, and move to our output. So here you can see that it is working successfully, and we had to need basically an array here, because whenever we type that all the data fields and press on our save button, the data fields should be saved in an array, and again we type all the values and save it, and again all the array would basically uh, append our previous code to our next code and create a whole array, and all the array elements should be displayed here. So how can we get these values? I have already told you that in our app component I have to create a function that I have written here, handle add project, and inside this handle add project I have to again type our that code, Control C, and paste it inside that function. And now I have to make some changes here. That the very first thing that I have to do, I am just going to create an array. So let me remove it from here, and I'm just going to type project, and I am just typing here an array dot projects. Inside this project I am going to save all the projects, and our next value is project data. I have here mentioned that inside this array we have project values that we have written here in our useState. These projects initially are empty, and whenever this function is called and passed a parameter, so inside our set state we have a previous state. So here we have typed that all the previous states projects, and we have written here comma, and this is our project data which is passed here for the same time. Now just let me show here. I'm just typing here console.log to show you that what is basically happened to our data. Not selected. Now let me save it and move to our output, and here whenever I type anything and save it, and let me move in our console, and here inside that console you can see that we have here an array. Again let me create another array, it is not showing and storing our previous values. So what is the problem? I have not mentioned the function inside our new project, and I have also not passed that function here. That's why it is not showing anything. So for the very first step, let me copy it and move in our new project, and I have to pass that function and remove that function now. Control V. I have passed that function which is handle add project, and here I am just going to type any other function, and inside this function we would call basically our that parameter, which is not a parameter but a function which is passing as a parameter. And here I am just typing get values, get val, and I am going to define that function here. Get val const get val is equal to and here I have to type all the values which are of useState. Dot I have to write fname message and the last thing which is our address. Now we have to store these values. That here I am going to call our handle add project, and inside this project I am going to take curly braces because these curly braces would show here as a parameter. I can just store these values in any variable like name is equal to, and here I am just typing const message and here const address address, name as name. I am just passing these values now as a parameter to that function. You can type here any value, it's up to you. Now just save it, but there is a mistake that we should have to type here these braces, but the main thing that we have forgot to type here, that all these values we should have to pass as a single object inside these curly braces. Control V, and now there is one mistake. What is that mistake? Let me see. Data value dot address. Let me see, are the spellings correct? Spellings are correct. Now what is the problem? We have not written here equal sign. We don't need to type here commas. And let me move to our output. And here I have to click on create new project, and inside this project let me add some random values. Just save it, and now you can see that it is hidden. But one thing that I gonna tell you, here it have created an array of that object, and this is the array that we have passed the values. But there is one mistake that we have done here. We have not used the useState values. Let me see what are the useState values that we have not written here. Handle add project. I have to type these values now. Handle add project. Here I have to give comma because these are separate values. Now just save it and move to our output. And now you can see that it is not being hidden. preval.projects is not iterative. And if we move back, let me show you what is the problem here. When we are creating an array, basically for this array it is showing an error, and here you can see that we have that array as project, but here you can see we have projects. So with that set state, that projects is not basically updated with our that project. So here I have to type s, so that our previous state should be updated with our set state now. Just press Ctrl S and uh, ignore this array. This is just showing that it may be duplicated somewhere. So let me move on our output, and here you can see that whenever we type anything and save it, again we create a project and we type anything else and save it, and now you can see that there is no an error. I have told you that our set state was not basically updated with our previous state, that's why it was showing here an error. And let me move in console, and here you can see that we have two elements of that array. This is first index that we have, and that we have entered the values, and this is the second index. So we are basically going to work with project management application. So for this project management application, I should also need a date. So inside our new project, I'm just going to take here at the third index, at the third input type, I'm just typing here as date. Now just press Ctrl S, and I have written here address. So I can also type here as due date. Let me make it date. Now just press Ctrl S and let me see, is it updated with both? So here I have not written. Now just press Ctrl S. This is date now, and here I have to also set this date. Date and all the values are updated. This is our set state. This is our get value function. So here I am just going to type date. I have just typed here as DAT. Now here I am just typing DAT, and at this place I am going to type due date. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and let me see, is it working correctly or not. And here I am just typing a date. Now I have saved it and move in our console, and inside our console you can see that we have that date which we have selected. So we have converted our one input type into date. So what we have to do now, I have created our array successfully, and for this time I don't need this function because this was just for set our previous values with that set selected project. So we don't need now because we have converted this function to add to handle add project. So what we have to do now, and we can see that inside this project we have all the elements. This is basically an array which is updating by the passage of time whenever we type any value. So here inside this project we have all the data. So what we have to do now, I'm just going to show all the data besides this button. I want there should be here some buttons, like whenever I type any project and save it. So let me show you. Let's say I have here random values, and whenever I click on save button, there should be here a button automatically included, and inside this button we have our data which is currently added. So how can we show here now all the values which we are here typing? So for the very first time I just need here buttons, and I have to just pass it as a props inside our sidebar. So I have to pass that props now. Control C, and let me see our sidebar component. Here we have our sidebar component is equal to Control V, and now we have passed that projects as our props to our sidebar. Just press Control S and move to our sidebar, and inside our sidebar I have to type here comma and paste this value again. So here I am just going to use array map. For use here array map, I am just going to use unordered list, and inside this unordered list I will use array map. So to use the array map we just need here curly braces, and now inside these curly braces I have to type projects.map, and here I have to pass some value to this callback function, and of course it would return something. So here I am just passing project element, and inside this return I am just going to use li, and inside this li I have to use a button so that our values should look like inside a button, and inside that button I have to type that array's name. This is an object basically which is passed here. This object is an array, so here I have to type project element dot name, and we should type these values inside curly braces because this is a part of our JavaScript. Now just save it and move to our output. It is showing here an error that projects is not defined. So let me see where is projects. Let me see inside our app component. We have successfully passed our projects, but why is it not working? Let me see. Projects is passed from our that component. The main mistake that we have done here, this project is not openly available here, but this project is inside our that useState. Now just copy it and paste it in our that project. Control V, and you have to type here dot project, because this project is inside that useState. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output, and here you have to type your name, and it can be random value here, and select a date and just save it. And now you can see that it is saved here. I have not made any CSS till now, so I will do it later, but for the time being just focus on the structure that we are going to do. And now you can see that again we have here another array. This is not an array, this is single object. So now let me make some CSS here, because our main focus was for the structure that we have done here successfully. So I will also change these button outlooks. So inside our new project, inside our sidebar, I have to make some styling with our unordered list style, and I am just typing as margin top of 10 rem. Just save and let me see. That's more than enough. So I think there is 3 is enough. So the second thing that we have to do to make list style as none, because we have seen here dots, and now you can see that there is no dot here. And let me make some other CSS. I'm just typing margin left as 10 pixel, minus 10 pixel, and here I am just typing. I think that's enough for the time being. So now we have to work with our li style. This is our custom CSS styling, that's why I am using that. This is not our bootstrap styling. So here I have to type margin as 10 pixel, and inside that button, let me also make some changes. Inside our new project, I have created buttons. Let me show you. And from this data, I am going to copy that code. This is our outline of the button. Ctrl C and move to our sidebar. And here you have to paste that code. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output again. But this color is not good here. You can also type here success. Let me see what is it now. You can also type anything, it's up to you. So here you can see we have added 2 projects. Let me add a third project here. And here you can see we have third project. So you can also make some CSS, it's totally up to you. You can make minimum width of that button with these buttons, because our default values would be not lesser than our this button. So that's why you can have some custom CSS, it's up to you. So what we have created here, we have, for the very first step, we have stored all the values inside an array which is created by a function which is handle at project. So for our next thing, we have to work with our, that whenever I click on that button or any of these buttons which would be shown here, the same project should be displayed at this place. So how can we do that? To work with these things, we should have to need some ID which would be unique for every project component. So here you will see an error inside our console.log. Here you have an error that each child should have a unique key prop, and I will also resolve this error later. So for the first time, I have to create here separate ID for each component, so that for our next step we are working with these IDs, that every button would have separate ID, and whenever I click on any button, it would compare the ID from all the array, and the ID with any array would match. It would display these arrays here. So to display these arrays here, we should need two things. The first thing is we have to design a separate page. You can say a separate component, so that on that component it would display the values. And the second thing I have told you, we need here ID with which we would compare. So how can we make here ID unique for every component? So I gonna remove that code from here. Control X. I have removed everything. Control X, and here I am going to paste const project is equal to, I am going to take an object, so I have to paste it here, and ID should be unique, math.random. So here the ID would be unique for every component. So one thing more that we have to do here, as we know that inside this object we have some data values, but while assigning to an object we cannot pass it directly, but we should need here three dots, which is a separate operator that we have seen. So now for this three operators, which is a separate operator, for this separate operator we would have all the properties which we had inside our project data that we have passed here as a parameter. And now let me copy it, Control C, and now paste it here, Control V, and just save it and move to our output again to show you what is happened with our code. We have these random values. It's totally up to you, but for the time being I am just taking some random values just to show you the output. And here you can see we have two elements of that array, and here you can see we have an ID passed which is generated by math.random, and you will see the ID for every component would be different. So what we have to do now with that ID, we have successfully created that ID, and we have also initialized inside that array which is projects and we have passed it to our sidebar. Now inside that sidebar I need some things here. So the very first thing that I have to do here, I have on click function here for every button. And what would this function do? This function would came from our app component. So for the very first time, let me make here a key, and here I am just typing project element dot id. Now just save it and move to our output, and inside our console let me refresh it. And now you can see there is no an error because we have passed here a key prop. So what we have to do now, I have here a function, and what is this function? Basically inside our app component we need that function. So here I am just going to type that function const handle select project. I am just writing handle select SELEC selected project is equal to, I have not written here equal to, so this function would take some ID, and this ID would come from our sidebar, and this ID I have created just some minutes ago that we would work with that ID. So here I am just going to take set state. Let me copy that set state, just copy it and paste it inside our that project, that function, and here I have to initialize with that ID. Now selector project is initialized with that ID, and all the values would be same that we have written here with the help of 3 dots. But the only thing that we have changed here, that ID, because whenever this function is called, this ID would be passed from our sidebar and it would initialize to our select project. So let me pass that function to our sidebar as a props. Just copy it and move to our sidebar component. Here we have sidebar component, Control V equal to, so I have to just pass that function and move to our sidebar, and I have to receive that props here. And now whenever I click on these buttons, which are unique for every array, I am just typing here on click, I am passing that function, and I have to pass here a parameter. So what is this parameter? I am just passing here ID dot ID. Now just save it, and you can see that whenever we call that function, it would also take a parameter by default, which we have passed here. So whenever this function is called with the help of this parameter, which is unique for every array, so it would move to our app component, and inside our app component our that function is called. So our this function would make the ID to initialize our selected project. So now what we have to do, I have to create a component, and inside this component we would show our data. I'm just typing here selected project dot .jsx, and here you have to type RAFC, and we don't need here this data. I am just passing some props here. I'm just typing array ARR, and I'm just typing here class name as row, div, and here I have to type class name as column medium device 12, and here I am just passing array.name, which should be inside our curly braces. Now just save it, and what we have to do now, we have created that component, but we have just passed one value here just to check, and we would make later all the codes. So for the time being, let me make its connection. So here I am just going to create here a function to check and compare the ID that we have passed. So I'm just typing here const selected project. I'm just taking these letters as small letters, is equal to, and here I have created that useState not selected. Just copy it, Control V, dot ID dot projects. Basically we have the projects inside our that useState dot find. I have to use here a find function, and inside this find function I have to use callback. Now I have also to pass here any index. This is not an index, but this is an array, as like this is an object as like array map, which is pointing to that array. So here I'm just typing project. I have taken some random value so that you don't may make any confusion with our already done code. So here I am just taking curly braces, and it would return something. Project dot ID is equal to not selected dot project not selected. Let me see, I have passed that ID to that variable. Just copy it and paste it, which is inside our not selected. Now what is happened, basically this is our JavaScript find function. It would return any object what is this object? Basically it would here measure this object, compare this object with our that object to that object we have done here. So if it satisfies that condition, it would return some value. So now we have to pass that variable to our new project, selector project that we have created now. So let me also import it here, selector project, and let me make here is equal to, I'm just going to set here selector project, and it is just saying that this project would initialize to that project if we have no, and if we have yes, this project which is new project is initialized to that project, and if none of these occur, then obviously there is some ID. So if there is some ID, we are going to pass that value. We are just passing that component here. So here we have to pass our props, which we have done here as a variable. Just paste it. Now what is happened? Inside this variable we have the value of that ID. This is not the value, but this is the object of that array. Which one is the object? Basically the object which is satisfying that condition is initialized to our that selector project, and our selector project is passed here as a props. And in our selector project, let me also receive it here, Control V, and here I have also typed here Control V. Now just save it and also save to our app component and move to our output. I think our app is not working. It is not responding. And let me show you what is the error here. The same thing we have done here, we should also make it as a function callback. Now this is a complete structure of that function. Just press Ctrl S and let me move to other components. In our app component, everything is working successfully. So I think this was only the error that we have modified now. So let me move to output and show you if it is working or not. And here I am just typing some random values. And whenever I press on save, you can see here it is stored. So whenever I click on that button, it is showing nothing here. So what is the reason? So till this point you can see there is no error. Everything is showing here correctly. So let me make any other thing. All the values are random here. You can see that both of these are accessible now, but for the time being this component is showing nothing. So now let me move in our selector project, and inside this selector project you can see we have passed here selector project as a props, and we have also used here a console.log to check if our props is working successfully or not. And here you can see it is passing here the values, and if I click here on engineer, and here you can see this props is correctly making console here. So now we have to work with this component. So what we do here, we have basically here a name, text, and there should be text area as well. So this is our row, and inside this row I am just making it comment because we don't need here console.log. So we have to work now with our that component. So here I just need a button, not basically button, this can be the name. I'm just typing here as 6 and going to copy it and paste it again. And here I am just passing the props selector project dot name. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. Here you can see we are here able to see engineer, which is basically the name, and here this is spelling mistake. So what we have to do now, at the left side I am just showing here that name, and at the right side I am going to display a button, and this will be a delete button. Whenever the user would click on that button, this project, let me show you, any of these projects should be deleted. So here we should have a button of delete. I'm just copying a button code from other component. Control C and going to paste it in our selector project. And here we don't need these things. I'm just typing here as delete, and here we don't need to call that function. Now just press Ctrl S and let me move on the output. So what is the error? We have not imported our button here. So we should also have to import our button inside our selector project component. Now just press Ctrl V and again move to our output, and here you can see it is showing a button and that text. So we should have to make some styling here. I'm just taking here some style as margin top of 3 rem. I'm taking 4 rem, and now I have to set these values. If I click here and click here, these values are changeable now because these are passing separate props for every value. So here what we have to do, I'm just typing here some styling as well. Text transform as uppercase. This is the name of that project which we have to do, and after this thing, let me first make here a React fragment. Control V, and here I am again going to take another row. So here we have to type class name as row, and inside this row I am just taking here date, because we have two things remaining. One thing is to handle with text bar, text area, and the second thing is date. So here I'm just going to show date. First I have to take here another div and make the class name as column medium device of 12 pixel of 12. These are total columns of Bootstrap. So here I have to type selector project dot. Let me see what is inside. If I move in console, and here I can see what values we have. I have due date, so I am just typing here due date. Now just save it and move to our output, and here you can see it is showing us the date that we had selected for this project, for this component. So here you can see these values are changeable now. And one thing more that I have to do, which is text area. So I want to just display our text area at the bottom of this date. So how can I do that? I have to take another row and div as well. Just copy it. If I don't want to take another div, I can also take div here and give it class name as column medium device of 12 pixel, and here I'm just typing selector project dot. Let me see, I forgot the values, so that's why I am going to see values here and showing you the names. Here we have message, because date we have taken and name we have also taken. The remaining thing is only message and ID with which we are going to play. Now just save it and move to our output, and here you can see it is showing the message. So let me move in our selector project, and inside this selector project I am going to take here, let me make here HR. This is nothing but just a horizontal line. Let me show you. You can see here it is showing the line. So here I am also taking BR. Now just save it, and I want there should be some space from the top. Margin top has 10 pixel, and here I am just taking another component to show the values, because you came to know very well that React is all about components. So I am going to take another component here, and this component is named as, you can make anything. I'm just typing here tasks.jsx. Just save it and move again to our selector project, and here I have to import that project component. Import tasks, and here I have to use that task component. Now just save it and again move to our output, and here you can see that this task is rendered successfully. So what we have to do here, I want the user should have some values. Let me first remove it. And I'm just taking it as a fragment of class name as row, and inside this row we have some data. Let's say first I am taking here a column for its responsiveness, column medium device of 12, and here I am taking H5 tasks and just save it. And what we have to do now, I want here there should be some input type text, but before we go further for detail, now we should have to work with our delete that we have not worked till now. Whenever we select any project here, which is task basically that we have added, and whenever we select any task and click on that delete button, this task should be deleted from our these components, these projects. This is a list of our projects. So how can we do that? Let me again move to our code, and inside this code I am just typing here that selector project, and whenever I click on that button, there should be a function which is called, and this function would delete that array from our complete array of code that we have added, but we have to delete only the object across that delete. So how can we do that? Here in our app component, I'm taking a function same like we have here find. Let me show you. Here we have find, and here I'm just taking a function. So what can be the name of that function? I'm just taking a random function here, handle delete project, HAN handle delete project is equal to, I'm just creating it as fat arrow function, and we have to pass here some state which is our previous state. Now just copy it and paste it inside our handle delete project. And what we have to do here, I want there should be our previous state as same, and one thing more that I wanna do here, that whenever the user would click on delete button, select project should also be as no. So here I gonna paste it inside that component, that function. So here we have made that all the previous value as it is, and now we have set that selector project as no. So what we have to do now with our projects which are going to create an array, these projects should be equal to Ctrl C, and inside our handle delete function, now just press Ctrl V, and here I have to type previous value dot projects dot I am just going to filter. So what we have to filter here, I'm just taking here a callback function and passing here any parameter which is pointing to the elements of that array. I'm just typing PROJJ. So here I'm just going to compare project.id is not equal to our previous value dot selector project. So what we have done here, let me see, selector project. Yes, we are going to compare with selector project because we have passed here some ID to that project, and this ID is passed now from our button, and by clicking on the button, let me show you, by clicking on any of these buttons, it is generating an ID, and this ID is also passed to that array. So we can say that whenever any button is clicked, so here across this button an ID is generated and passed to that array, and now it is our recently previous state, and we are at this place, and whenever we click on that button, it is going to compare with our previous state value ID that we have created while clicking on any of these buttons. So here that's why I am going to compare it, that if project.id is not equal to previous val.selector project. So what is basically the difference between find that we have used here? This is find and filter. The find would return only a single object that will satisfy the condition, and filter would return an array. And what is that array? The array would be that which would satisfy that condition, and this function is invoked from our delete button. So we should have to pass it to our delete button. In our selector project, I should have to pass it, and here you can see we have delete button inside our selector project. Now just copy it, Control C, and we don't need basically to pass here any value. For let's say I don't need to pass ID, and this ID should be again generated by clicking on our that button, because in whenever we clicked on any of these buttons have generated a separate ID, and that's why we don't need to again create an ID here. We can create, it's up to you, but for more simplicity we don't need to create again an ID here. So that's why I'm working with our previous ID that we have previously stored inside our array, which is inside our projects. So here I'm comparing that the ID which is not matching to our that previous state value should be returned to that project. So this filter would return complete array excluding that value which would not satisfy that condition. So just save it and let me pass that function to our selector project, and here we have to paste it as of props. Control V. Now just press Control S and move to our selector project, and here I have to again make comma and paste it. I have written here, I don't know what I have written here, and delete project. So this was spelling mistake, ignore this thing. So I am just clicking here on click, and we have to pass here a callback function equal to Control V. Now just press Control S and move to our output. Here it is showing the error. What is the error inside our app component? Inside our app component, this function is returning something. There was not a spelling mistake, but our copy mistake here. Just press Ctrl V and make the remaining part as same. It is showing here the error, module build failed, syntax error. So with return we have an error. So what is that error? No, just save it. It was an extra curly brace here. Now I am just going to take here some values. This is random value that we are going to generate and save it. Again, I am creating another component here. And whenever I click on engineer, and here you can see the button, whenever I click on that button, the function is not being called. Let me see what is the problem. Let me also make here some console to check if our function is working correctly or not. Console.log. Now just save it and again move to our output, and let me move in our console, and now you can see that our function is not called. So what is the problem here? Let me see. We have passed the values. We have passed that function as a props to our selector project. Where is our selector project? Here, selector project, and here we have passed that function, and inside our selector project I am going to make here on click. It would call to that function. So why is it not going to click here? Our function is not being invoked. So what is the reason behind? Here we don't need that callback function because we are not going to pass any value here. Now just save it and move to our output, and whenever I click on engineer and click on this button, you can see our that project is removed. Again I click on Sample, and if I click here on delete button, this is also removed. Let me create a new one again. And I have not made any validation with these input fields because our main focus was on React.js learning. So this is our easy part, so that's why I'm going to skip here. You can make some validation. So now here till our this point we have done everything. We are getting the values that we are going to input. So what we have to do now, I just need here after that text, that task, I have to use input type and a button as well. So I'm going to take that button and input type from a field, from another component. Here inside our tasks, what I have just that task's name. So inside this task, I need some data here, but ignore it for the time being. I will show it in the later part of this tutorial. I'm just taking another component which is named as new task dot .jsx. Just save it and move to our task, and inside this task I'm going to import our new task, and here I'm going to use that task. Now this project is rendered here, and here you can see it is showing new task. So what we have to do with the new task, I just need here a button and input type, class name as row, and here I'm going to take a div, and this div class name is as column of medium device 6, and I gonna copy it again, Ctrl C and paste it here. So inside our first text field I need here input type, and for second div we need here a button that whenever we type anything and we click on that button, the value would be stored somewhere. So inside our new projects I have a form, so let me copy that form. Only one input field needed, so just copy it and paste it inside our new tasks, Ctrl V, and we have to do one thing more, that we have to import that form which we have imported here, and we also need button. That's why I'm also going to copy that button and import it inside our new task. And here inside this text field I'm going to use that button, but one thing more, that I don't need that label now. Now just press Ctrl S and let me show you the output. Fetch well, because we have not these functions here right now, that's why it is showing the error. We also don't need the name here, and I'm just typing autocomplete as off and placeholder as enter your task. Now just save it, and here you can see it is showing the output as an input field, and here we need a button. So I want the button color should be as blue that we have here, but this button color is not looking awesome. I can also convert it to white, so it's up to you. I'm going to take here a button from our sidebar. Where is our sidebar? I'm here going to copy that button, Control C and paste it inside our new task. Here just press Control V and remove that button. Here I have to type add project, and I am going to remove that function which is being invoked here. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. Here you can see we have a button and input type. So what we have to do now, I have to handle the values by React, which is controlled input values, and whenever I click on that button, these values should be saved here at this place. So what I can do here, for this thing I have here value. I'm just typing input value and onChange function, and this function can have, I'm just typing fetch input value. Now here you have to use useState, and I am going to type the same name, set input value, and here I am going to make equal sign and useState, as its initial values would be empty, and whenever this function fetch input value is called, let me make it a complete fat arrow function. And whenever this function is called, it would also create an event. I am just passing here E. So here I have to set input value with event.target.value. Now just press Ctrl S and again move to our output, and here you can see we have still able to type anything, but now these values are controlled by React. So what we have to do now, I want whenever I click on that button, there should be a function which is called onClick. So I'm just typing here any function, get input values, get input values function, and here I am going to call that function and define it. Get input values, and for this thing now I should need a function here. We should be able to get these values inside our app component, because we have complete array inside our app component which is getting the values. So here I am just typing a function, and its name would be as const add project function is equal to, now this function should be passed to that new task which is imported inside our that tasks, which is our task component, and this task component is imported inside our that selector project. So you should have to pass the values from app component to our new task. So for the very first time I have to copy that function. Just press Ctrl C and now paste it inside our selector project. Let me see. Yes, we have to pass that function as a props to our selector project. Here we have that selector project and I am going to pass that function here is equal to, just press Ctrl V and save it. Now move to our selector project and inside that selector project I have to get this props and now I am going to pass this props as a props to our task component. Ctrl V and save it. Now inside our task component I have to get that props and I have to pass that props to our new project, new task. Is equal to add project function. Just save it and now move to our new task and inside our new task I have to receive that props which is a function. Now just save it. So what we have to do here, I want whenever this function which is add project function is called, it should display some error, some message for the first time, and to that function I should also pass the value. So what is that value? I am just passing input value. Just press Ctrl S and inside our F component I should also make it as a function taking some parameter. I'm just typing txt. Now just press Ctrl S and if I type anything that we have added, and let me show you in console. Here you can see the function is called. So this function is successfully called and the value is passed to that function. Now we have to get that value. That value is nothing but just the value which we have input here. So what we have to do now, I want here a text like, let me remove it now. I'm just making it as a comment now, and inside that code I'm just typing here T. I can also take here some value as const tx is equal to, and I can take here project ID which is nothing but we have passed here already. Let me see what was project ID that we have passed here. We had simply ID which is inside our selected, not selected. Control C, and here I am going to paste it just as same name ID not selected dot ID. Here I have to give comma and I am again taking here add project to add, and I am just typing txt and updating our project. How to update that project, I need here set state. Just copy it and paste it outside of that object. Ctrl V, and here I have written all the previous value, and we have to set all the previous value with some data. I'm just typing here another array which is tasks. So inside this array we would have all the tasks. Whenever we click on input type that I have showed you right now, so here handle add project, where is the function I am working with? Add project function. So here I am just typing as tasks and giving a new array here. I'm just typing previous value, all the previous values, and now not selected dot task. We basically don't need it now because we have set all the previous values and the current value we have stored in tx. So I'm just passing here tx. And we don't need it because I'm just going to save something, so we don't need to make other changes. Now press Ctrl S and move to our output. If I save it and move inside that project, and here you can see if we type anything, and whenever I click here, it is showing here an error, preval is not iterative. Let me see what is the problem with our preval. Preval is not iterative, that's correct thing, because I have to move inside our tasks. Now just save it and again move to our output. Now you can see the value has passed to our function, but one thing more that I gonna do, I want whenever I click on that button, this value should be now empty after adding to our that project array. So how can we do that? That's quite simple. Inside our new tasks, whenever our that function is called, which is get input values, and I'm calling to that function and passing it as a parameter. After passing that value as a parameter, now I'm going to set it again to initial as empty. Just press Ctrl S, and now if I click here on that button, you can see it is now empty. Now what I want, basically I want the values that I have entered should be displayed here. So how can we display these values? We have fetched these values successfully. Add project function, and we have stored the values inside that task. Now inside that task we have the values, so I'm going to pass that task to our that task component. So that task component is inside our selector project. Here you can see this is our task component here inside our selector project. So now I have to pass that task. Just press Ctrl C and pass it to our selector project. This is our selector project and I am going to pass it as a props here. Now just save it and move inside our selector project and receive that props as well. And again we have to pass that props to our task in which we are going to display it. Now just press Ctrl S and again to move in our task and receive it here. And at this bottom place I'm just going to use fat array map because this is an array. Task is nothing but an array and I am going to show this array here. Tasks dot, we should have to write all the code inside curly braces. Tasks dot map, and we should have to create that map as a callback function, and of course this would return something. And we should have to pass array element, and I'm just typing here array element dot let me see what is inside that task. Tasks is an array which is here. Let me see here. This is an array and inside this array we have txt. This is nothing but just these values. So now I have to point out to our that text. So inside our that task I have to get our text basically. So I have to copy it. Just press Ctrl C and paste it here. So we should also have to use here li. And one thing more, that we should have to write these values inside curly braces. Now just press Ctrl S. Tasks is not defined in app component. Let me see what is the problem with our app component line 83. We have that task passed as our props. So what is problem with that task? The problem is that we have this task inside our not selected. So this task is inside our useState. So here you can see that our project is completed till this point. Let me show you again. I have written here my name and any random value here, and I have selected the date as well. And whenever I click on save button and move again in our that component which we have created, and here I am going to take some tasks as go to a walk This is just a random value. I'm just showing you. So one thing more, that whenever I'll do this task, so I want here a clear button, and whenever I do this task and I simply clear on that button, and my that data would be cleared. So how can I do that? You can see that here we have used array mapping with our task, that we have used here an array of task here, and this array is basically pointed out by using array mapping. So whenever we pass that array mapping, we should also pass a button with all the arrays. So this is our new task, that we have a selected button, and let me show you in our task, this task, and here I have to use a button as well. I'm just using here span tag. This is not compulsory, but I'm just taking it to make all the things in single line. And here I am going to take a button. I'm just taking my bootstrap button. And here I'm just typing clear. Just press Ctrl S and move to our output. And here you can see we have a button known as clear, but I want its outline. Let me show you how can we write its outline, that we have also created for this button, which is delete button, and this is our selector project. Let me show you where is selector project. And inside selector project we have variant as outline success. Just press Ctrl C and I am going to copy it inside our task, which is use a button, and I am making it as danger. Now just press Ctrl S and again move to our output. Here you can see this is button and hover color is red, because we are going to delete something, and red color is going to show some danger, like it would be swapped or erased. So what I should do here, I want this button should not be at the end with that text. I want there should be a text, and at the full right side there should be the button, instead of just ending of that but at that text. So instead of just ending of that text, so how can I do that? I'm just taking here style. I'm making margin top. I can take margin top from another list, which is at upper. So here I'm just typing display flex, so that both of them should be displayed in a single line. Justify content as space between. Now I just press Ctrl S and again move to our output, and here you can see that here is a huge space, but I don't want this space. I want this button should be displayed here at this place. So how can I do that? For this thing I should take here again a container and row, and for the first time I am going to use here React fragment, and I am going to close this React fragment at that bottom. So here I am just going to take container, container, and this is as float. Inside this container I am going to take a row, class name as row, and inside this class name I am just going to take columns, column MDS. I'm just taking 7 and pasting all the code here, and again I am taking another column so that we may make total 12 columns. 5. Now just press Ctrl S and move to our output. Here you can see the button is showing here. But what if I take here 6 and here 6 as well? Just save it. Now it is looking awesome, and I'm taking so whenever I click here, you can see here is another button, but there is no space between these two buttons, so I should also make here some space. Margin as 0.5 rem. No, that's enough. So I am also going to change the background color, and for this thing I am just pointing to order list, unordered list. So here I am just typing margin top as 1.5 rem. That's enough, and here I am just taking background color, background color as white smoke, and you can see that it is not looking awesome, so I should have to take here some padding as well. Now just save it, and it is looking awesome now. I am just making some border radius, as 0.4 rem, border radius as 0.5 rem. So now it is looking awesome. And one thing more that I have to do now, whenever I click on any of these buttons, the text which is at the across of these buttons should be erased. So how can we do that? And keep in mind that this all code is in task, so we have here mapping inside task. This is task mapping that I have already showed you, that task is an array which is inside our index. So task is inside our selector project. Let me see it. Here it is showing task, and this selector project is inside our app component. So what we have to do now, here I am taking another function, and this function would be responsible to delete all the tasks that are added. Delete added task, and inside this function I should also pass the ID of that task. And you also know that we have passed IDs to tasks as well. handle add project, handle select project, handle delete project. Now just press Ctrl S and it is showing error that it is not defined. So here I have taken my task ID which is created randomly. So here it is passed. So let me show you in my console. And I have already told you that issue, it is just requesting for a key prop and we will give it later, just wait for the time being. Here it have due date and messages as well, and here we have task array, and inside this task array we have three values: task ID undefined. Let me see why is it undefined. Let me refresh that page and try again. And let me show you in console. And here inside this console you can see it is passing here an array, and inside this array we have also task ID which is randomly created every time. So what I have to do now, I want whenever I click on that button, the ID which is passed to that task or created across to that task or any other task should be passed by props to a function, and we will handle and determine that what project is selected, what project task is selected to delete. So how can we do that? I have created here a handle a delete added task. So here I have to copy that code, handle delete project. My code will be similar to that code. That's why I am just going to copy that code and pasting inside my project, and I am going to pass here any value tskid. Now just save it. And one thing more that we have to do now, I have to pass that function as a props to our task, but we should have to make props drilling here because we have not directly task inside our app component. So I am just going to select my selector project, and inside my selector project I have task. Ctrl V and save it. Now I have to move inside my selector project, and now here I have to receive that props here, and without using these props I have to pass this props to task. Now inside my task component, let me see, here I have my task component and I have to pass that props, and here I have received that props here. And what I have to do now, I want whenever the user click on that button, on click, my that project is called, and for this time we should have to pass any parameter. That's why I have to use here a controlled function by React. So here I have to give parentheses, and inside these parentheses I'm just typing array element dot id. Let me see what are the names here of task id. Here we have the name as task id, project id, we have the name as, let me see, here we have task id name, so I have to pass task id. Now just save it and move to our output. So without moving to output, I want to show if our project, if our function is successfully working or not. So I am just going to use here console.log to check if our function is successfully called or not. Now just save it and move to our output, and here whenever I click on clear button, let me also show you. Whenever I click on clear button, here the function is called successfully. So what we have to do now, you can see all the values are cleared now because we have not made changes in our function according to that task. I have here written that all the rest of that code will be same, and for this time I don't have to make any set project, and here inside of that projects I have to type task because we are now working with our task array which is here. So now we are handling that task dot previous val dot projects, but now for this time we don't need projects here. What we need here, inside that task we are working with previous val dot task, so I should have to type here again task dot filter, and this is any random variable that we have passed. We can also change it task element dot id is not equal to previous val dot task. I should have to type here task as well. Element dot id, this is not the id but this is our that task id. Just copy it, and we don't need, we basically need this value. What we don't need this value because we are now comparing with our that task id which we have passed through that function as a parameter. So here I should have to type here task id. Now just save it and move to our output. Let me make that code again. And here I am going to select the date as well. Now you can see that these functions are working successfully. So here there is still a problem, and I will show you the problem. Just wait for the moment. So you can type anything here. Let me make some values. And now whenever I click on any of these tasks will be removed. If I wanna remove that task and that task as well and that task, you can see that these tasks are working successfully. So this was the project, and let me tell you what is the problem that we have to face till now. If we have multiple projects here, and I have saved it, but I have made the both of these names as same, so I don't want to make these names as same. I have made these values, and I am just passing the sum task here. These are random values, so ignore these values. I am just going to show you the drawback that we have faced till now. And here you can see that these tasks are still same for this and this project, so we don't need these things. We want for this project these tasks should be different that we have selected and added, and for this task these values should be different. So how can we do that? Nothing is difficult, but just we have, you can see that here we have passed separate IDs for this project and this project as well. So what can we do now? Across this project we will also pass here as a props the ID of that project to that array, and if we click on that project this array would be displayed, and if we click on that project the ID that we have passed to that project should pass to that array as a props, and across that ID these projects would be displayed. Let me show you which we have created. Here you can see we have passed here project ID is equal to not selected dot ID. This is pointing to our project ID, and this is pointing to our task ID, and with the help of this ID we are able to delete the same project, same task on which button we are clicking. And for this project ID we should need to compare which project ID is basically working, and on this project ID we will make the data display here. So this is a challenge for you that how can we do that. So that's quite easy, nothing is difficult, so you have to do that. And one thing more that I have left with, when I click on save button it is saved, but whenever I click on cancel button that project is not cancelled. So how can we cancel that project? Here you can see that whenever I click on new button, and here you can see we have here this image as shown, and whenever I click on that button, again we should have to work only with our useState, and we should make our useState as no. So if I take here as useState of no, this page will be displayed, and for the else case our project is shown here. So if you are still confused with this thing, let me create this thing now. And the very first thing that you should know that this is our selector project, So here we have selector project, and let me show you the cancel button. I think this was not selector project. What page is this basically? Because selector project was this one and this one, all these are selector projects, but this is new project. Let me see, where is, here is new project, and here we have cancel button. I just want on click. We should have to call a function here. I'm just typing cancel project and copying it, Control C, and we don't need to pass any props, any parameter here. So I'm just going to make a props drilling here as well. So this new project is now imported in our that app component. So here I have to create another function is equal to and I have to do nothing. The very first thing that I have to do is to our that new project I have to pass that props. Let me see what is the error now. I think there was some brace missing. So this brace was missing. That's why it was showing the error. Spelling mistake, on click, and here we have to make that function as of props receiving. Again we have made a mistake. We have to pass this function in curly braces. And inside our app component, what we have to do now, we have successfully passed our props to select to new project. Here cancel project, and we have to work with our that function which we have created as cancel project. So I'm just copying that code and pasting it inside our cancel project, and here I'm just typing as no, because whenever we have no value, then we have back to our that project. Now just save it, and if I refresh that page and if I click on that button, we are moved back. And again, whenever we type anything, it is able to save these values. And again, when I press cancel, this came back. So the only one thing that I have left with, this is the challenge that I have already told you. Whenever we type any task here inside our one component, it is also shown in other component. So I have also told you that how to handle this thing. Now we have to work with this ID, because this project ID and this project ID are different. So now we have to work with these IDs. So that's quite easy, and I hope you understood it.